So guys, you've all heard in the news in the last 24 hours that reports come out about Telford, the grooming gangs, and probably the worst case in Britain. This is not actually frigging right, because every city across the UK, this kind of thing is happening on an industrial scale. These are not just sexual grooming gangs, these are rape gangs.
Hi fellas, this is a report from the Breitbart News Network, which is, you know, slightly right wing, and it reports on 20 MPs demanding an inquiry to find out why we are still letting these girls down, these vulnerable, mainly, poor, mainly, young girls, usually from the age of 10 to 17, 18, who are systematically gang raped all over the country and killed sometimes to cover the crimes. And you know, nobody will admit it's even still happening. I wouldn't just say it's the MPs that need looking at. I personally would say it's the fake news mass media, the BBC, all the newspapers, the Guardian especially, the Independent, all these guys that were calling Tommy Robinson a criminal, a thug, you know, but call Britain First a hate group and what have you. Well, don't you think it's a bit hateful, all these thousands of men raping, like, probably over 1 million kids? Yeah, kids, because that's what they are. It doesn't matter if you wear a bit of makeup or if you have a bit of vodka at 14. They're still a kid, in most people's eyes. A group of 20 MPs have called for concrete action to be taken against sickening grooming gangs. So I'd second that one. That's about the right description. Sickening, racist, hateful, supremacist grooming gangs, I'd add. Yes, and it goes on about, you know, about how the gangs have mostly Pakistani heritage men. I'd like to point out, but it's not just them. I saw it going on years ago, and there were Kurdish people, Kurdish refugees, fake refugees, and they were Iraqi refugees. I don't know which sex, whether it was Shia or Sunni, but they were Iraqi refugees who were working in takeaways. Yes, and it states cases of gang-related child exploitation, such as Rotherham, Telford, and Newcastle, conforms to a precise model of recruitment, manipulation and exploitation. Well, it would do, because they all follow a book which encourages invasions, massacres, looting, thieving and rape of women and children. Yes, what makes me laugh here is, even in this article, and this is like slightly right-wing article, a slightly right-wing paper, I don't see anyone, and I should say Raheem Kassim, is it, or whatever his name is, the guy who's spoken about London being a crap hole, that he is an ex-member of a certain ideology who encourage all this. There's decade-long child abuse scandals in which politically correct authorities turned a blind eye to the industrial scale, to quote the Telegraph, the industrial scale sex trafficking and mass rape of thousands of vulnerable girls at the hands of mostly Muslim grooming gangs. Well, I'm not wrong there, because 90% of those jailed in the UK for about a decade, 90% of them have been belonging to that ideology. Yes, you get the odd Archer and Jones and, you know, Slavic name and the odd German name, somebody working over here, but 9 out of 10 on average of every page of the 265 pages I've seen are belonging and named after a certain ideology. This is an interesting one I read earlier on as well. There's a girl here was raped by at least 70 Asian men. Only 2 of them have actually been prosecuted, which isn't very good, but I mean, she probably wasn't very helpful at the time. She was about 18, and only 2 are jailed. I mean, that's quite sad, isn't it? But she's written a book about it. What's the book called? I'll give it a little plug while I'm here. She uses the name Kate Elsia. I don't know if that's a real name, but this was in Birmingham. And she named her attackers, and I think this is a model, but she looks something like that. No Way Out was the book she wrote. So you could Google that and what have you. And they were all non-white, you know, non-Eastern Bloc Islamic people, every one of them. And they were using her, abusing her terribly. you wouldn't believe what they do. I mean, there's been cases Tommy Robinson and Paul Golding have reported on recently where they've battered them, they've pushed cocaine up their nose, they've shoved the handle of claw hammers up them to give them abortions, and it's worked. Some 13, 14-year-old girl held her down. This is the sort they've held, put guns in their mouths, held knives to their throats, you know, to force them to do disgusting things. Yeah, and this guy was locked up for a couple of years, and he came out and went straight round the house, forced somebody else out of the house, and raped her in her own house. Very nice, is it? Yeah, so I'll try and put a link underneath. But I mean, to try and say after 2 decades of this pattern of sexual abuse, that it's not connected to the ideology they follow, the ideology which tells them that all captives are just booty, do with them as you please. That's what old Monster Mo, the lunatic killer, said. Do with them as you please. And it is, even his men at the time queried it, because how can this be right? But of course this was the same Monster Mo who told them they were the master race. All of us were scum, animals, the lowliest of beasts. So I'll just put a link underneath, and I must say there's a few papers like Breitbart's very good, the Metro around London's very good, and even the Independent, which was terrible to Tommy and been terrible to Britain First. Even they've posted some good articles. I just wish to make the connection between what Tommy Robinson's saying and what Paul Golding's been saying for 8 to 10 years, and the ongoing rape gangs, because to try and say there's no connection is just absurd. Okay, see you guys, bye bye.